So sharing that bucket list with someone that's going to be throughout your life and someone that you love is something very special. So having someone with you while accomplishing the bucket list was everything.
Welcome to the Crossing It Off podcast, where we believe living with intention through a bucket list lifestyle is a great way to bring yourself personal joy. As you are crossing items off your list, you're actually filling up your bucket. The more items you cross off, the more joy gets added, until eventually your joy spills over into the lives of those around you. Now let's start crossing it off together. What is that one item on your bucket list that screams out, I want to do this with my dad, my spouse, my best friend? Do you have something like that on your list? In my book, I talk about the fact that when you're creating your list, this is one of the questions you can ask yourself. And our bucket list storyteller today did just that. He wanted to experience something on his list that meant something to him and his dad. And they had an amazing time crossing that item off. Let's learn how and why he did this. Let's start crossing it off. I'd love to introduce my next guest. His name is Preston Corbel, and he describes himself as a stuntman, an entertainer, and an actor. Preston, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really was looking forward to this one.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad. So tell us, what did you cross off your bucket list?
Go to the Super Bowl.
Okay. As a player or a fan or just
And I was just a player, but no, as a fan.
Okay.
And not necessarily the teams I wanted, but I just wanted to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question too. So where did the goal come from? Tell us your origin story. Like, what led you to put this on your list?
So I grew up playing basketball, and my dad was always the great show up at the games and cheer me on, and we always had that bond of sports. We watched football all the time. He's a Cowboys fan, and obviously they're not going to the Super Bowl anytime soon. But we wanted to go to the Super Bowl, so that was it. And I think I believe it was like 2014. It was the first cold weather Super Bowl. So that had a nice ring to it, but we just decided to go. We went to New York City, and I think it was part bonding with just me and my father, and second, just kind of coming together with sports and kind of bringing my childhood together.
And so this is not like a cheap event.
No.
Right. So how did you prepare for that? How did you decide that this was the year that you were going? And what did that entail as far as getting there and making it happen?
So if we were going to do it, if it's our bucket list, then we're going to do it right. So we actually went for a whole week, and we stayed in New York City, freezing cold. And it was really cool because New York City just put all down Times Square. It was just set up for Super Bowl events and set up for, everyone to come together. So they had a lot of stuff there, but we spent a whole week, and we went to concerts all week. We saw Jason Aldean, and then we saw Beyonce and Jay-Z, and we met Mark Cuban, and it was just a lot of fun stuff. So.
Yeah. And so did you prep a lot ahead of time? And were there any events like that were specific Super Bowl related? I know there's lots of events that people try to take advantage of gathering all those people together, but were there any like Super Bowl stuff before the game that you were interested in?
So we went, I'll save the Beyonce concert for a minute because there's a fantastic story behind that. But right before the Super Bowl, the morning of, we went to a charity event, and they had a lot of retired players. And they had signed, pictures and balls and stuff, and you got to interact with them. But that was really kind of a wholesome event. I enjoyed that.
Was that something that was open to the public, or was that something?
It wasn't. So it was open to a certain group of people.
Yeah, nice. Well, there's lots of events like that. I've been in a Super Bowl city when it's happened, so I know that there's tons of stuff going on. So you went to Beyonce and Jason Aldean. Those seem to be like two ends of a spectrum.
Well, two different days.
Yeah, but it's still two different ends of the musical spectrum at some level. So how did the Beyonce concert come about?
They were both Super Bowl related. The Beyonce one, we got tickets and we wanted to go see. I'm not a big Beyonce fan, but obviously it's one of the best and most popular artists in the world, so you got to take advantage of that. Mark Cuban was putting it on. I'm a big Dallas Mavericks fan. So we're sitting out waiting to get in. There's like just a fence gate. It's a black tie event. Everyone's in nice formal wear. And we're sitting, this guy comes and pushes up, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push up. I should already be in there." And we just talked to him for about 5 minutes. And then he had asked my dad what he does, and then my dad asked him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just a CEO for a little company called T-Mobile."
Small
And then
company.
about 30 seconds later, he yells over at Mark Cuban on the other side. Mark Cuban turns around and says, "Text me." So I thought that was really awesome.
That's nice, those brushes with greatness. And
Yeah.
when they're decent people, that makes it so much more fun too, for sure. So you get there, it's Sunday. What's it like for you all getting to the game and then finding your
We
seats and
we
being
had
in
a
that atmosphere?
great weekend leading up to that. And actually the Super Bowl day was in the 50s, so it was the warmest day. But the stadium's in New Jersey, so I didn't know that going ahead. I thought it was just in New York. So that was a surprise. But we got there and everything, I mean, this is pre-COVID and all that, so everything's organized, and there's no one really around the stadium. There wasn't really like tailgating or anything. It was just people that had tickets. I will say one thing about they gave us like lights when we got in there, and they worked. Bruno Mars was there, so they
Hmm.
kind of correlated with the concert, and you got this light. But that stadium in particular, the announcing wasn't there, so you couldn't hear what was going on. So
Hmm.
you were watching it, but it was almost like I couldn't. There was no commentating, which I guess when we watch TV, we're always listening to commentating. So I thought that was a little weird, but
And not seeing the commercials, was that a little bit weird?
well, that was pleasant.
Yeah, we live on two different ends of the spectrum on that one too. I was trying to figure out how to get my smart TV to like mute the game and then come back on when the commercials were, so I knew when to pay attention. So you're in the stadium, and it's not a teams you're like super excited about. How is that being a part of that atmosphere different if you were a fan of one of the two teams?
So it was Seattle Seahawks and Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning, the great offensive Denver Broncos, they were just fantastic that year. And then there was a good, I think Seahawks were pretty good offense and great defense. So it was built up to be a great game. And lots of fans, obviously, from both teams, and we're just here to enjoy the game, which was nice and relaxing. We're not stressed out about anything.
Yeah.
I think the very first play, they snapped it over Peyton Manning's head. And then Seattle went, and Seattle was up the whole game. It was almost over within the first play because it seemed like. But it was really enjoyable not to be a fan of the teams
Hmm.
and just relax and watch it.
That's awesome. And you said Bruno Mars was the halftime. How did that
Yeah,
was
I
that
loved it.
exciting?
I loved it. It was really cool. It was definitely cool to see. I wasn't a big fan of this year's, but with Rihanna, but Bruno Mars was great. I mean, I'm a fan, so I enjoyed it.
And how was that different from sitting in your couch at home watching a halftime show and being there live?
I think we had those lights that I mentioned, so you kind of feel like you're a little involved. And the stadium looks really cool. I thought it was great because the stage and everything they put together almost takes up the whole field.
Hmm.
So you do feel like you're a little more involved, but you get to see the behind the scenes. You get to see them setting up. You get to see them tear it down. We never get to see that stuff. So I thought that was really cool to get that insider point of view.
Here at the Crossing It Off podcast, we are passionate about inspiring you in your bucket list lifestyle and empowering you to live out your list. We offer many resources to assist you in your bucket list journey, such as web resources in the show notes, bucket list mentoring services, my book Live Out Your Lists, a private Facebook group for you to share your bucket list success stories with others, and more. All of these can be found at crossingitoffpodcast.com. Find the resource that fits your need so that you can live out your list. Now back to the show. And when you were done, when you walked out of the stadium, when the game was over and you walked out of the stadium, what was that feeling like between you and your dad specifically?
I think it was joy. Like we had a long week, but that was like what we were there for was the game.
Hmm.
Everything else was just cream on top. But it was joy and kind of just we had that bonding experience, and we just you can't get that anywhere else. And it's something that I got in my childhood, and I just when you get older, you aren't as close to your parents, and I think it was just an opportunity that was more than a game, more than a Super Bowl. It was father and son coming together and enjoying sports.
And when you crossed it off, how do you feel when you're finally done with it? Was it something you're like, okay, I'd do that again, or I've done it once and I'm good? What was
Well,
your feelings?
I actually made a short film, and it's actually called Bucket List Super Bowl. But I filmed our whole experience about it, and during the week and part of the Super Bowl, and I filmed it, and kind of have that as memories. It was on Amazon Prime. I don't think it's out there anymore, but Yeah, that was it. That was our bucket list. That was something we experienced together.
And did you feel like is there anything that changed inside of you after doing this? Is there something that you were like, had an aha moment, like whether that's how you live your life or how you do business or whatever?
I think with bucket lists, whether you're doing it by yourself or your significant other, when you do it with a parent, they're not going anywhere. That's someone that you're going to have for the rest of your life. You do
Hmm,
it with a significant other or a friend, you don't know what's going to happen down the road. So sharing that bucket list with someone that's going to be throughout your life and someone that you love is something very special. So having someone with you while accomplishing the bucket list was everything.
that's awesome. Have you, we're going to talk about future bucket list items, but have you done more stuff with your dad? Has it become like a thing for you to do this together? Or is it that was one thing and you're going to go find some other people to do some other bucket list items with?
Definitely not Super Bowl quality. I mean, that's just an expensive lifetime thing. But we live in Austin, Texas, so we go to UT games and basketball games. Try to go see the Spurs. So we do still watch sporting events, but we're watching sports almost every weekend together, especially football. So
Nice. So if somebody said, "Hey, Preston, I want to go to the Super Bowl. I want to have that experience." What's like the one thing that you would recommend to them that they make sure that they accomplish or do during that time frame?
this is it. I mean, this is the opportunity. You don't get to go to multiple Super Bowls, and vast majority of people don't get to go to a Super Bowl.
Hmm.
So you need to enjoy it, soak in every moment, and be happy the whole time, and just soak it in because this is your moment. You're not going to get it again.
Did that was that tough for you? Like being in New York, like New York's a hectic city and getting around, and just like you said, you had to figure out how to get to the stadium because it wasn't downtown, in Times Square. Was that difficult, or how did you accomplish that task of remaining joyful and happy?
I've been to New York a lot in my lifetime, so that wasn't that crazy. But I think, I mean, to have a Super Bowl and to have Times Square just dedicated to Super Bowl events and all that stuff, I mean, there's no other city that can offer that. So that was just so much more special to have it in New York.
Awesome. So, Preston, what's next on your bucket list? What's something that you still want to do?
I'm a retired actor, stuntman. Been around athletics my whole life, and I'm going into mental health, and I'm going into treating professional athletes and retired athletes. And I want to take the experience I've had in my athletic career and my education to help others. So I guess my bucket list is kind of a long-term one, but it's to help others through what I know and I can bring to the table. So I just want to open up my heart and my brain and help others. And that's really the bucket list that I have.
How would you go about doing that? Like, what are some of the things you do to help those folks?
So, from a counseling aspect, I mean, you can sit down with group therapy and you can sit down one on one. I think with athletes, though, it's so special. And now that we see it with COVID, it's more acceptable to do it at home. It's more acceptable to do it on Zoom. And it's more acceptable for men to reach out and seek therapy socially. But I think with athletes, I know what it's like to be hurt. I know what it's like to dedicate your whole life to something and then all of a sudden it's gone. So a football player is a young kid and now all of a sudden they're 30. They were forced into retirement. What the hell do they do with the rest of their life? So that's a very unique situation that I feel like I can help.
So that's incredible. I love that. Have you watched Ted Lasso?
I saw the first season, yeah.
Okay, I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan, and
Oh, it's
he,
funny.
he that show does a lot to cover some of those same topics. If you watch both seasons, it does a great job. I think that's
Jason Sudeikis is always funny.
yeah. Men's health is a tough thing, and I'm glad that there's folks like you out there that are helping folks through that because yeah, we were taught a lot as young men to be a man, suck it up, do those
Especially in
things.
sports.
Right.
So
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I think almost every male has experienced that at some level. It's
yeah.
just be a man, and so it's good to have places and folks like you that are helping out with that.
Okay.
So, Preston, where can folks find you online and get engaged with you and the stuff that you're doing?
So I'm really just on Instagram, stunt.beast. But it's kind of a community there. We focus on fitness and mental health and overall health. But I mean, I'm interacting with comments and DMs, and it's just more of interacting with people and tossing around thoughts and kind of encouraging each other. I'm also on a app called cameo.com. If you want some kind of personalized shout out, I'm pretty cheap on there. But I'm not here to sell anything. I'm just, interact with me. If you want to talk and just throw ideas out, DM me on Instagram or give me a comment.
That's awesome. I love the slogan, make social media social again. I think it's important that you're just not consuming, but you're engaging with folks. And so I think that's awesome. Preston, thank you so much for being here. I wish you all the best of success in everything that you do, and especially with helping men and their mental health athletes. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. Obviously, you're the fantastic host, but I want to more thank your audience for listening to me and go get your bucket dreams.